Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining our live Innovations in Energy webinar this morning. Hope you're fine today. My name is Eugene Ramanenko. I am going to be your MC in this online event. We are going to work up to 4 hours. You do have the agenda, and you might have heard that in 2020, the energy sector is facing unprecedented challenges with the global COVID-19 pandemic complicating an already challenging transition toward a low-carbon future. And one of the key elements in addressing both the current pandemic and climate change is with forward-looking collaborations in technology development and innovations, and which have long been a hallmark of 482.solutions approach to problem solving. 482.solutions are the main host, the main organizer of today's live webinar. And in fact, scientific collaboration among energy domain companies is still increasing and combining traditional knowledge areas. However, innovation demands the articulation of many layers, including decisions related to environmental concerns and logistics, and the most relevant of all, the competition from other energy areas. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join us today. Feel free to ask any questions, and please be tuned on very pleasant conversation, very deep in mind conversation. Dive deep into energy innovations today. Is going to be very interesting content. We will have 5 keynote speakers. They are very talented men, very clever men, and they are broadcasting, will be broadcasting from different points of our planet Earth, because our planet Earth is totally united in the 2020 COVID era. And please join us on this webinar to hear and discuss with the experts. So together we will be able to better navigate these difficult times for a successful transition to a sustainable energy future after the current crisis. And I'm very happy to announce and to invite our first keynote speaker. He's Stanislav Borisov. He's coming from Ecolabs, and let me explain what Ecolabs is. Ecolabs is the Center of Innovation for Energy, enables and accelerates innovation capabilities in Singapore and Asia. If you ever dreamt of Singapore and Asia, please listen to me carefully right now. To support the future energy transition, this joint initiative with Nanyang Technological University, or NTU, Enterprise Singapore, and the Sustainable Energy Association of Singapore, just listen to their names, aims to help local-based energy startups and SMEs by providing them with essential translation facilities and connections, such as research and development manpower, lab infrastructure, testbed sites, and business opportunities to help them successfully commercialize and scale their innovation efforts. So if you have a dream about Asia or Singapore, just listen carefully to our first keynote speaker, and please give a warm line of applause to Stanislav Borisov. His topic is going to be the energy innovation ecosystem in Singapore. Stanislav, you're online, please. Welcome. Give us your speech.
Thank you very much for such a warm introduction, Eugene. And I would like to also say thank you to 482 Solutions for this great opportunity to share more about Ecolabs, to share about innovation ecosystem in Singapore, and how we are working with the startups and innovators in this part of the world. So let me start my presentation with a little bit of background to give you a context of what Ecolabs Center of Innovation for Energy is. So first of all, what Eugene briefly mentioned in the introduction is a joint initiative by 3 entities. So let me just introduce you each organization in a bit more details. So NTU, Nanyang Technological University of Singapore, is one of the biggest and leading universities and research institutes here in Asia, with over 45,000 students and people working at the campus. So it's indeed one of the leaders in the research here. Enterprise Singapore, it's a government agency which is supporting startups and SMEs and the general development of the ecosystem from the government side. And of course, we have SEAS, Sustainable Energy Association of Singapore, which is a non-profit, non-government association with a lot of members from this part of the world. So more specifically, ECLAPS is coming from Energy Research Institute. And as you can see on the picture, currently it's the campus where you can see the scale. So basically, ARIAN is one of the leading research institutions here in the region with more than 250 million in funding, with more than 250 researchers, PhDs, and brilliant minds working here. We also have state-of-the-art infrastructure, test beds, facilities. We have a number of research programs and quite a lot of industry collaborations. This is in general Singaporean mindset, so that any kind of research, any kind of activity should be as much practical as possible. And more specifically, talking about mission of ECLAPS and our reason of being is to help startups and SMEs to build their capabilities. So how we're doing that is by bringing together innovation capabilities and business capabilities. So by providing, again, the necessary infrastructures, connection, and business opportunities. So in my presentation later on, I will show you a few examples how exactly we are doing this. When we're talking about energy industry in general, so nowadays energy is not very niche industry anymore, and we are focusing on 8 focus areas. To name a few, it's renewable energy integration, it's circular economy, it's carbon reduction, it's e-mobility and in general future mobility solutions, it's energy efficiency, digital grids, IoT, big data, AI, and of course, smart cities. So everything which is related to energy savings, sustainability, and clean tech technologies. I think it's not a surprise for you that the current trends in digitalization, decentralization, and decarbonization is the major factors in the industry development. And we are focusing, again, on all these aspects. So all our startups and partners usually come under one of these focus areas. So ECLAPS is an ecosystem. And in this ecosystem, we have a number of important players and group of players. So of course, we're still connected to the government, which provides a great support in terms of the grants, innovation calls, and co-investments. We are still in very close relationship with ARIAN, Energy Research Institute here at NTU, which also share a lot of facilities, labs, and resources with us. And the 3 main probably players in this ecosystem, it's startups and SMEs, it's corporate partners, and investors. So this is 3 pillars on which our ecosystem can be rich and really helpful to all players. And of course, we're also partnering with a number of also industry players, private companies for test bedding opportunities and for market entry programs, be it coming out of Singapore or coming in Singapore. So now I will dive a little bit deeper into the startups and SMEs, and we'll show you a little bit more on how we're working with the companies and innovators here in Singapore. So first of all, ECLAPS is currently working with around 70 deep tech startups and SMEs. So some of them you can see on the screen, again, in line with our focus areas. And what I mean by deep tech, and also some of you might be familiar with the technology readiness level terminology, TRL. So if we look at this chart, ECLAPS coming to play at later TRL stages, usually 7, 8, and 9, where the first part of the development and maybe the first several years coming either from NTU itself or from other labs, be it in Singapore or overseas, then usually prototypes tested and deployed in the labs. And again, that's where our connection with Energy Research Institute comes to play, because we can always leverage these resources and help startups to co-develop or existing products or new products. But our focus areas and most of our partners with whom we're working, it's at the later stage when the technology is ready to be commercialized and deployed. So speaking about way of collaborations and how we usually help startups, we can classify it in 3 general buckets. The first is our, of course, core expertise is technology translation. And what do I mean by that is translating technology from the lab into the market. And how we do that, again, through product enhancement or co-development. It can be helping with IP filing. It can be standardization. And the most important aspects, of course, where we have quite a lot of attention is field testing and deployment of products and solutions on different sites, be it here in Singapore or overseas, and of course, commercialization through a number of commercial projects and co-innovation projects. But all of this usually impossible or hard to do without proper funding. So for this, we also have a number of ways to support our startups and our partners. So the first level, of course, is government grants. Singapore is very supportive, especially in regards to deep tech innovations and new solutions. We have a number of calls, which is usually a partnership between government of Singapore and the governments of other countries, or even just big private entities. It can be co-innovation programs where Ecolabs might partner directly with the commercial partner in order to provide more opportunities for us, for the partner itself to close some technological gap, as for the startups to help them to showcase and prove their technology in the real projects. And of course, a big part of the funding is VCs and angel investments. So we have a quite big pool of venture capitalists, and I will show you later how funding also coming to play. And the last bucket, it's market entry. We're working in both ways. We're helping companies who are ready to expand to Singapore and to Asia to come here in Singapore to establish a headquarter, and later expand further into Southeast Asia or Asia Pacific. But at the same time, of course, we're working with a number of local innovators who would like to enter new markets, be it Europe, US, or any other geographies, even here in the region. So for this, we also have a number of resources and instruments to help with that. Now I will go deeper into each of these parts. So I will start with the technology translation part, and we'll show you how exactly we're doing that. So the first level, of course, it's the lab level when technology is either at the early stage or maybe it's a new product and you need to test it. So for this, we have what I mentioned before, state-of-the-art labs for different type of technologies. What you can see on the picture, it's fuel cells labs, it's a solar lab, it's batteries prototyping lab, it's wind and marine lab. So we have 12 labs like this covering different domains. And one of probably our most advanced and interesting developments, it's Future Mobility Lab. So for the Future Mobility Lab, we have also a number of vehicles, a number of technologies, both tested as within Energy Research Institute, as in collaboration with our startups and in collaboration with our corporate partners. So you can see some BMW electric vehicles there. You can see collaboration with Volvo autonomous bus, which is full-scale 12-meter autonomous vehicle, which is tested here in Singapore. Of course, we have a smaller vehicles, be it utility vehicle for carrying some weights, or like even road sweepers, and we have minibuses. So all these technologies, they're constantly in testing, of course, coming from the lab. Later, they're coming through the test bed. So the second stage, as soon as the technology is ready to face, let's say, the real world, or at least some part of it, we have a number of test bed partners. So some of these test beds coming from NTU or from the government, and this is like multi-million projects, each of them. Just to give a few examples, Renewable Energy Integration Demonstrator, in short, REITs. It's several microgrids installed on the island here nearby Singapore, where a number of renewable energy integration solutions can be tested. Again, in collaboration with industry partners and startups and research entities. So we have Citran. It's also the first and the official place for testing all autonomous vehicles. So any autonomous vehicle which is planning to hit the road should go through a number of certification to get all approvals first in this simulation track, in this test bed, before it can be allowed further on the dedicated roads in Singapore. We have experimental power grid center, which is also a multi-million facility with a number of equipment and testing facilities where you can test a number of solutions and again, show or demonstrate how it works. Even the campus of the University of NTU itself is a living lab. What it means is that university management set up specific goals in order to reduce energy consumption, water consumption, how to recycle waste, and so on and so forth. And for this purpose, we're deploying different tech on the campus itself and looking how is it helping to achieve these targets in real life. Just to give you a flavor of one of these test beds, what I mentioned earlier, Renewable Energy Integration Demonstrator, REITs. So I have my colleague, Prasanna, who will present you in a short video, in 5-minute video, what this test bed is all about. So let's see the video from Prasanna.
Gravity, light, heavy. We are all very familiar with the basic laws of physics because we experience them in our day-to-day life. How about power system? Let's assume this is the utility grid. Utility grid has its own inertia. This is called power system inertia, and it's very important to maintain the power quality and stability. In a conventional system, the power flows from top to bottom. Our homes are here. We are familiar with 400 volts, but the distribution network has two more levels, 6.6 kV and 20 kV. Anything above is transmission. We only focus on this because all the major changes are happening here. Currently, the percentage of renewable energy distributed in the network is extremely low, because of which the stability of the grid is not shaken yet. It's been a smooth sailing for the conventional grid, but not for long. The waves are coming. Drastic changes in the renewable energy market will have an impact on the grid business. Also, the advancements in other technology domains are forcing the grid to evolve and to upgrade. The distribution network is changing. Some consumers, they are taking new roles as prosumer. There are new loads such as electric vehicles and battery integration. Of course, there are energy service providers. Let's imagine we bring a small power system into picture. What will happen when the power starts flowing into the system? What will happen to the grid stability? In order to explore the next-gen distribution grid solutions, we designed and developed a comprehensive modular power system architecture. This is REIT's low-voltage microgrid cluster testbed. The green ones belongs to NTU, the red ones belongs to the industrial partners. We have 400 volt and 6.6 kV medium voltage network. Two sets of shared assets, one common load feeder, and a comprehensive interoperability framework to make sure we can manage the modular power systems. All these power systems are also digitally connected, and the backbone is compatible with the standard communication protocols. REIT's testbed has been deployed on Semacao landfill. Let's have a look at the core infrastructure. The LV and MV switchgear are designed to provide high degree of reconfigurability to offer different DES integration, such as grid-scale energy storage and electric vehicle batteries and photovoltaic systems. The future of distribution grid would demand different expertise to work together as a team in a single project. For an example, if one of the REIT's operator wants to do some R&D use case but he lacks some components, he goes to the core infrastructure and gets the cluster access to implement the use case. In this, the characters represent the microgrid operators. Let's go for one particular use case. The REIT's industrial partners share their technical expertise to create a strong business model and as well as to implement the challenging use cases of next-gen grid solutions. For example, power, energy management, microgrid control, and optimization. The testbed is designed to accommodate different types of grid solutions. As a result, today we are working with various industrial partners focusing on different research concepts. What is the impact of REACH to Singapore? By offering 4 unique types of collaboration, REITs has been attracting industrial partners from different spectrum of energy sector. As of today, in REITs consortium, we have about 33 industrial partners from all over the world. What is our vision? To explore the innovative solutions for the future grids and to contribute to the new generation of standards and products and to close the gap between research and commercial. REIT's platform offers strategic research collaborations between industries and academia. This reconfigurable testbed provides pre-competitive RD&D opportunities in the energy sector specific to the future of distribution grids. REITs bridges the gap between conventional and modern grid. If you are part of this ecosystem, we are on the same boat, literally. This island is an ideal destination for research ideas and grid solutions to be cast away in a good way. I am Prasanna from REACH team, and thank you very much for your time.
Daddy, did you take my toys?
Okay, thank you, Prasanna, for such an entertaining and interactive video. This was one of the examples of our testbeds, but of course, there are many more examples and opportunities coming not only from Energy Research Institute or from the government of Singapore or our partners. We have also a lot of industrial partners. We have corporates and private companies who own different facilities, be it in Singapore or overseas, which we're also partnering and using as testbed, which actually gives a good exposure both as for the owner of the facility and also maybe we can help them to achieve certain targets in terms of sustainability or energy consumption. But at the same time, we're helping startups to deploy and showcase their technology on these testbeds. It also works as a launchpad to new markets. Because as you can see, not all of these testbeds are located in Singapore. So this is another way how we can help a startup or a company to expand overseas. So again, talking about technology translation, we talked about labs, we talked about testbeds, and of course, the most important part comes at the commercialization stage. And for this, we have a fairly big and diverse ecosystem and network of partners who are working with us on different levels, from research to some already prototyping to deployment, be it their own solution or solutions developed together either with Arian, with Ecolabs. So with a number of these partners, we're working much deeper on specific co-innovation programs addressing their specific needs. And for these programs, we usually invite all startups to apply. And I will show you later how specifically it works. Now coming to the second bucket of funding support. So we talked about technology translation. Now when we're talking about funding, there are also multiple avenues which startups can explore. Starting from the first level where a startup can apply for POC or POV Startup SG Tech grant here in Singapore. Usually these grants are available for development of the first product for the company. It means that the company not necessarily might have a revenue stream yet. And these grants come handy. Ecolabs bring also together infrastructure and other opportunities to help with the product development. The second phase is different innovation calls. Again, it can be in partnership between two governments in Singapore and another country, or between a government and some big corporate partner. So one of the recent examples is Eureka Global Stars Singapore call, where through this grant, companies can apply from one of the 14 Eureka partners countries in Europe, including Ukraine, and a company from Singapore. So these two companies coming together in order to develop a new product or solution, which at the end of this project should be commercially ready. And both governments covering the cost of such development, testing, and prototyping. So each country has their own requirements and different amounts that can be covered under this grant. But this is one of the examples how companies can find support even if they're considering market expansion. And of course, the most important part, which is interesting probably to the most number of our startups and SMEs, is the network of angels and the venture capitalists. It can be private VCs, it can be corporate ventures. So we have a strong pool of investors who are working closely with us as technical experts. So from our side, we are providing them with a high quality startups, deals, and in the return, of course, investors, they're also interested to invest in the right startups, because energy field in general and deep tech startups is not something that can be understood easily by everyone. And that's also our role, to work closely with both partners from a startup side and from investor side, to make sure that there is the right match and the right expectations regarding this specific technology and how this investment will be carried out later on. So another interesting way of get some funding support at the first place, but also to get into some projects with corporate partners, it's co-innovation programs, where Ecolabs creates an agreement with the partner, usually corporate partner, over a specific problem statement. So for the corporate partner, it's usually a great opportunity to find potential solutions, which might either maybe disrupt their business in the future, or maybe they're already facing this challenge right now. And for a startup, it's also a great opportunity to be introduced to these corporate partners, showcase their solution, and if they're shortlisted, usually there is some amount of money, like let's say 100K, 200K, 300K dollars, which invested as a grant. Also, Ecolabs coming to play into these programs as a in-kind support, which also might include providing the infrastructure, talent, and so on and so forth. So there is a clear interest and benefit for all parties, for corporate partners and for startups. Now I will show you one of the examples of such co-innovation programs, just to give you a bit more insight in terms of how is it structured, how it's organized, and how it might look like for startups. My colleague Ryan, who is leading Smart Cities and Future Mobility initiatives here at Ecolabs, will present this video for you. So let's get started.
Hi everyone, I'm Ryan from the Ecolabs Center of Innovation for Energy. I lead the effort in Smart Cities and Future Mobility at Ecolabs, and I'm going to share with you a co-innovation program between Ecolabs and Continental Automotive Singapore. CoPace, with very strong presence in Israel, is the startup hub of Continental. CoPace is made up of 3 building blocks: incubation, cooperation, and investment. The team we are working with is the Continental Venture Arms. The Ecolabs Continental Urban Mobility Accelerator Program, or ECOMA, is jointly established by Ecolabs Center of Innovation for Energy and Continental Automotive Singapore. It aims to build a pipeline of products and services that are co-created by startups, SME, and our industrial partners, Continental. The ECOMA program is not just about us, it's also about you and your success in building your startup to the next level. The ECOMA program is for any future mobility startup who are ready to set up base in Singapore and venture into the world. When you join the ECOMA program, we will take on an active role to support you in your innovation journey. Some of our support include up to 125,000 Singapore dollar worth of project funding and startup support, access to our global network of partners, fundraising assistance through investment pitching and grant application support, guidance and mentorship from technical and business experts and seasoned entrepreneurs, training and workshop to hone your skills in critical aspects to accelerate your innovation journey. Join the ECOMA program is as simple as 1, 2, 3. First, submit your application into the ECOMA program website. Next, actively participate in our community, including network events, capability building workshop, trainings and pitching sessions. When opportunity arises, We will facilitate collaborative discussion between you and interested partners. Lastly, and more importantly, once selected, be committed in the deployment of our project in one of our global testbed sites to validate your technology performance and suitability for scaling up. The ECOMA program is designed to offer high flexibility, which sets it apart from the rest. We accept applications throughout the year and offer a wide array of capability building and networking opportunities, both virtually and physically. After your application is accepted, you'll be given an introduction to the Ecolabs Center of Innovation for Energy. We also invite you to attend our events, workshops, trainings, and community events. If you are shortlisted for the program, we will invite you to showcase and present your solution to a tailored audience, including potential investors, clients, and partners interested in your solution. The ECOMA program is championed by the four of us, Arvin and myself from Ecolabs, David and Wilson from Continental. As a champion for the ECOMA program, we pride ourselves on the success of your innovation journey, and the standard is always to excel in whatever you choose to do. Applying for ECOMA program will not be difficult. Before application, you will first need to be a registered company that focuses on urban mobility. You should also have your pitch deck ready as part of the application process. During the applications, you will be required to fill out the application form and attach your pitch deck. Your application will then be reviewed and we will notify you should further information be required. We may also request a missing word field if you need more information. And that's all for you. For the time being, the Continental, Co-Pace, and Business Unit team will review your applications, and if you are selected, you'll be invited to an info day, which will help you make an informed decision about our offer to you. Upon offer acceptance, you have the opportunity to pilot your solution at one of our global testbed sites. We will be assessing your application based on these criteria: the startup team, the impact of your products and services, your company business model, the technology feasibility, and the relevancy and alignment to Continental business requirements. Some of the specific application areas we are looking for includes autonomous, telematics, electric, intelligent traffic, and aerial mobility. So, are you ready to embark on your innovation journey with us? The application is open now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ryan, for presentation of Ecolabs Continental Urban Mobility Accelerator Program. So that was another example of how we work with our corporate partners and what kind of programs we can structure. Now let's go further. We talked about technology translation, we talked about funding, co-innovation programs. So, and of course, another part is the market entry programs. What I mentioned earlier is that we are building a network of our partners, especially from overseas, who are interested and ready to work together on the exchange of technologies, innovations, and maybe work on some projects together, so that when startups come to us with the it's always easier to help startups when you have strong partners in these markets. So currently, we have around 15 market entry partners at Ecolabs, and this network is growing faster even despite the current situation. On the other side, when companies expanding to Singapore, of course, we have an office space. But since quite a number of startups already working with us and in the same office, we decided to build our own co-working space in order to put everyone not just in the same building, because we have around 6 floors, but also in the same floor, so that everyone is around each other. So this co-working space is currently under construction. Again, due to the COVID, we had to postpone the launch of this co-working space, but I'm pretty sure it will be launched end of this year, beginning of next year. And of course, some feedback from startups and SMEs who worked with us across different programs with different requirements and different needs. So just to summarize what we've covered earlier is that Ecolab's helping startups with technology translation, with funding, and with market entry opportunities. So now let's see how companies usually become a partner with Ecolabs, especially startups and SMEs. So we start with an introduction call just to understand what this company is about, what's their interest, and whether there is even a synergy between us. Later on, we go into the stage of due diligence when we are doing a technical DD on a company to understand better their expertise, their innovation angle, how their technology is different. So all this process help us later on when a startup has a specific need. Let's say they're looking for funding or they're looking for specific projects. We understand much better how to position this company in front of the clients, in front of the investors. So again, it's a win-win situation. And as soon as we've completed technical DD on the company and we understand very well all the strengths and maybe gaps or technological gaps or other gaps in the company, we proceed to the collaboration area confirmation on which of these areas that we identified during DD we would like to work together, which later, of course, leads to some collaboration agreement or service agreement where we define the scope and the immediate action points where we can track how we are progressing along the defined lines. And now proceeding to the second part of my presentation, I would like also briefly cover also how we're working with corporate partners. So you've seen in the first part how we work with startups and SMEs. So now I would like to zoom in a little bit in the our way of collaboration with corporate partners. Here it's a bit more flexible and also depends a lot on the specific needs, specific requirements of the corporate partner. But I will just show you maybe a few examples also how it might come together. Again, in general, very broad strokes how we collaborate with corporate partners. It can be on co-innovation programs. It can be joint lab or participating in different consortiums. On co-innovation side, of course, it's open innovation. We can help with technology road mapping, help to identify and close the gaps, find the right technology provider and tech sourcing, as well as with DD process. Of course, like later on when we go into the project, Ecolabs also provide in-kind support. For the joint labs, again, it's pretty straightforward. So there are different opportunities to create a joint lab here in Singapore with the support of Ecolabs, Energy Research Institute, or NTU. So this, again, all very much discussable. And consortium, it's participating in the joint projects, again, joining forces. How is it happening in Singapore? That for big projects or calls, there is, of course, usually a lead player who decide to participate in it. But the application has a much better chances when fewer smaller companies, startups and SMEs join this consortium in order also to provide an innovative angle to this project. So with this, Ecolabs also play a role to help to identify the right technologies, the right partners for such consortiums. In some cases, Ecolabs or Energy Research Institute can even be a lead partner in certain projects, but mostly we're helping to find the right innovators for such consortiums. Just to briefly touch on open innovation model. So on the one side, we have a problem owner who comes with the problem statement. Usually it's our corporate partner. And then Ecolabs helping to find technology providers, problem solvers, help to translate it into commercial project. Because again, our interest is not just to source the startup, is to find the way how to do a project altogether. And of course, market enablers and all this facility for translation, test bedding, this is also coming to play, and we always can leverage the existing infrastructure or our partnership network. Again, and the end goal of any open innovation model, at least in our case, is some real concrete projects. So again, some typical funnel when we are doing the long listing, short listing of startups for specific projects. So of course, we do a very broad scouting, not limited only to Singapore. We're doing it on a global scale, leveraging, again, our market partners, leveraging our partners in other countries to help to create this pipeline of solutions. which later on, of course, will be shortlisted, due diligence will be done. So again, it can come as from Ecolab side, as from the corporate side. Quite often we do it together. And at the latest stages, we're identifying some scope of projects that shortlisted startups and corporate partner will be doing together with the in-kind support from Ecolabs. So on due diligence side, it can be like very simple due diligence if the corporate partner want to do the heavy lifting themselves. But again, usually it comes from both sides, where Ecolab's also helping to identify some product details, product advantages, roadmaps to understand in which stage is this current technology, how is it positioned compared to competitors, so that it's much more meaningful discussion. Some examples of joint labs, and you can see some of the big names, some of them international, some are quite well known here in Singapore. So these are examples of joint labs. But again, the very interesting consortium model on which we've been working quite actively, especially over the last year or so, is again, consortiums where a corporate partner coming as a lead for the consortium with the commercial part of the project, and Ecolabs join as a tech provider or with the tech support from the innovation side. And again, in Singapore, there are multiple schemes and ways how government supports innovators, so that some of these costs can be either offset for the project or even compensated for the final client. So there is a strong interest in doing such consortiums together with innovators like Ecolabs. And at the same time, corporate partner doesn't need to deal with the individual companies if they don't want to, or of course, there can be a direct collaboration if there is an interest. Again, just briefly summarize our collaboration model is co-innovation opportunities, joint labs, and consortiums. Thank you for your attention of today's presentation, and I'm ready to take any questions if you have.
Thank you very much, Stanislav. Stanislav Borisa from Ecolabs. Unfortunately, we have a very precise agenda, so we don't have enough time for questions. Thank you again, Stanislav. And I think that companies from overseas who would like to enter Singapore and Asia will contact you, will find you on the internet. So, ladies and gentlemen, now we are having a short time break for promo video, and in 10:50 a.m. Roman Kravchenko from 482.solutions will join us with his brilliant speech. Thank you again, Stanislav, and see you guys in 8 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching again. We're continuing, we're proceeding our live innovation in energy webinar, and we're exploring the innovations in energy and the trends of innovation in energy in our 2020 COVID year. You might have heard that 482.solutions are the main organizers, are the main hosts of today's live webinar. And let me say you, who are these clever guys? 482.solutions is a software engineering provider specializing in innovative solutions development using decentralized technologies. The key expertise of 482.solutions is creating solutions for Industry 4.0 issues such as blockchain, future of energy, digital identity, decentralized asset management, financial products, and services. And I'm very proud to say that the CEO for 482.solutions, Roman Kravchenko, is joining us right now online, alive. Roman, we're getting to you, and his topic is going to be the transactive energy management from energy to value. Roman, thanks for joining us, and you're online. Please give us your vision and your speech. You're welcome.
Yes, thank you, Eugene, for a great introduction. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone attendees and dear speakers. Thanks that you find the time in this critical situation in the world. And I think it's our main challenge is how we can share our knowledge and our expertise to more and more people. So today I try to describe concept of transactive energy through economic theory. And short disclaimer: this story not about good and evil. It's story about how we can make understand this next long step of energy industry evolution, how we can get the best from the previous steps and last, and move into the future for improvement, this process for improving technology, and how we can use this for prosperity of humanity. Shortly about schedule of presentation. There are three key questions I will describe. We tell what this transactive energy concept is, this evolution of energy market, energy companies, and electricity. We talk and try to prove Coase theorem, and tell about evolution from energy to value and what is it. Shortly describe what is our company. We are software engineer and provider. We are innovative solution provider. We use decentralized technologies in different areas, and last 2 years our key domain is future of energy, and we use blockchain and DLT to build Industry 4.0 platform for different participants. We involved in energy industry, and I thanks our partners and companies with which we cooperate. It's energy industry translators like NTU, Ecolabs. Previously, Stanislav have told about more about Ecolabs and the NTU ecosystem. Thanks to Energy Web, this speech the next after my presentation. Thanks for our partners from DTEC, to Insights, to different opportunities, how we can move to the future of energy. And today the main question for industrial players, what is the future of energy? There are different models that describes the future of energy. For example, the model from World Economic Forum, and there are some key issues in future of energy. For example, building energy systems for to supply and demand energy, different new business model, economic model, how we can create not just electricity but value and transit to end customer. And there are a new way, new vision how we can build financial sustainability of different markets, not just energy market. There are a lot of innovations in energy. For example, some short overview from IRENA, this International Energy Agency. There are a lot of enabling technologies like artificial intelligence, big data, blockchain, different vision how we can build new age business models. For example, P2P trading model, community ownership models, and so on. And innovations this about transforming of market design, using different not traditional approach like time of use tariffs, some approaches of granularity of electricity market, and so on. And it's very hard to understand what's happening now in energy market, in energy industry, and how can we describe this process, how we can understand, predict, and force this energy industry evolution. And the answers on these questions we can find in new institutional economics theory. So you see on this slide 3 fathers of this theory. It's Ronald Coase, Oliver Williamson, Douglas North, and all these smart guys, Nobel Prize winners in economics, and they provide economic model that describes the future of different markets. And in this presentation, I describe how we can use these models to describe energy market evolution. So within the new institutional economics, there are some categories, for example, market, institution, firm, contract, transaction, and transaction cost. These key categories with which we can describe economic systems. And the simplified market model due this theory, the key element of theory is transaction cost. There are 2 types of transaction costs: the internal transaction cost of companies and firms and corporations, and external transaction costs of the market. So there are proof from Ronald Coase theory that the internal transaction costs lower than external transaction costs in the market. So this motivation to create firms, companies, and corporations to build as long as possible value chains to create sustainable value, and you can reach the high efficiency in this system. So there are 4 conditions. There are 4 main conditions of Coase theorem. So our market must be open and competitive. There are no monopolists. The second condition, there we can get free access to market information. property rights on assets clearly defined between participants, and there are little to zero transaction costs. Transaction cost is the cost to manage bargaining and contracts between different economic agents. So as a result of bargaining and negotiation, we reach that external transaction cost transformed to internal transaction costs, and we achieve efficient outcome regardless of the initial allocation of property rights. If we simply describe this first version of energy market, there are two types of agents: it's producer and consumer, and there are some monopoly contract, and due this contract, consumer buy electricity from producer. There are energy market version 2. This also simplifies scheme. There are we transform monopoly contract to regulated market. So also we have a third type of agent, the prosumer, and all these economic agents can collaborate and interact on the regulated market and achieve some balances due supply and demand to electricity, and sell and buy electricity by market price. And what is the causes market? This energy market version 3. There are free market in which producer, consumer, and prosumer can interact not only within the market mechanism, but as P2P agents. So, for example, producer can directly communicate with consumer and execute some contracts to sell the electricity for this consumer. And there are we must do many steps to achieve this market 3 version, because there are some problems with legacy infrastructure, with legacy technology, with legacy regulation, and step by step we moving to this new version of market. The second conditions of Ronald-Coase theorem: property rights clearly defined and little to no transaction cost. What does this mean? And in this situation, blockchain play its main role to guarantee, first of all, ownership rights on different assets, and to eliminate transaction costs in the system. So if we describe some properties of blockchain, you can see, usually you can see some functionality, some optional properties, but blockchain don't guarantee this functionality, just optional provide this. The main benefits, the key benefits, economic benefits and business value of blockchain. First of all, this possible to clearly defines property rights in the system, and little to zero to no transaction cost. As a result, we can describe blockchain as fintech machine for digitalization, objectivation, this entity that have name value. So what is the value? Well, first of all, the measure of capitalization of enterprise, of companies, of economic system, and transaction in this case is atomic entity of value. So if we want to manage value, we can manage this value through managing transactions. And you can see a simple model of blockchain explorer, and in this case we can see this value on the screen of machine on our laptop, and we can directly manage this transaction as atomic entity of value, and due this we can manage this entity value. So blockchain provide functionality for steps of value management, this value harvesting, value processing, value storage, and value transmission. As example, well-known smart contracts provide smart value management. So this mechanism can describe how participants, how economic agent can exchange the values directly without some third parties, and eliminating transaction cost due this contract. And as we see on the Gartner blockchain spectrum model, we move in for blockchain evolution from phase of Internet of Information to stage of Internet of Value. So we built some blockchain complete system now, and this blockchain system provide functionality for create new energy market. But the key challenges nowadays, it's no single standards, no single approach how we can build this system, this economic, first of all, system. And I saw organization have a lot of efforts to create, to describe standards of blockchain and distributed ledger technology, and this process in deep development. If we want to describe some simple architecture of value technology machine of blockchain, we can use third layer model. On the first layer, entire third model, we can see component layer. This, for example, hard layer, layer of smart things. In energy ecosystem, this DRs. The second layer, the data processing layer. This different application, big data, AI, ML, and on this layer we can see on the energy ecosystem virtual power plant as example of this software layer. And the third intangible layer is internet, this layer of Internet of Value. For example, smart contracts is a simple example of this intangible layer, and this third layer architecture can provide for us approach how we can build value technology machine to manage value. And what is this evolution process? We can use a blockchain for first step for harvesting of value, and the initial point is exchange of value. And blockchain find its application first of all in this stage on exchange of different digital assets, energy assets, and so on. On the first stage, we move to distribution of value. So this means factors of production and goods. And on the third stage, we move to production of value. This model describes due Hegel philosophy, dialectic philosophy, how different social system evaluate. What about energy company evolution? Because market evolution have a huge impact to energy company. Energy company 3.0, this company that built and use factory automation control system, different ERP system, BMP system to create sustainable enterprise manufacturing process. But in new market and on the new evolution stage, energy company must transform and turn in energy into value. So we can describe this process as transformation of BPM ERP system to new age system as value process management and enterprise value planning platform. So you must start to work not with energy and electricity, but with value. And it's a very long and hard process of transformation. But there are three simple steps how energy companies start managing value. First of all, start collecting the data. You can use different telemetry system. The second step, start using decentralized identity and asset management. Start testing this approach to transform your internal organization process. The third main step, the elicit, record, and analyze the transaction, for example, using a DLT and blockchain system. So what is the future of energy company? Step by step, energy company will transform to financial institution, to fintech company, because they generate not electricity, not just electricity, but the value for different industry, for different domains. And electricity is the measure of value and the universal measure of value that created by company. And moving to more practical example, our company built Electrodo, this ecosystem for transactive energy management. And this product, this solution based on this economic approach. We start building components for Electrodo from 2018, and now moving step by step to launch this product to market. And this modular system that provides solution to three key industrial problems in transactive energy: this facilities asset management, electricity asset management trading, and cybersecurity and fault tolerance of this new model, new platforms. So due this Ronald Coase economic theory, Electrodo provides economic and tangible layer for different domains. First of all, transactive energy domain, renewable energy domain, smart grids, and e-mobility. The best example, well-known example, is Corda R3, and we built Electrodo in vision sector. And this platform provides possibility to transform energy companies to fintech company. And what is our strength as industrial players, as industrial pioneers, is synergy. Synergy is our strength. And if we try to describe some manifesto of transactive energy, this 5 simple step, 5 simple principle. We must launch in as small as possible joint R&D project. We must try to test new technology using sandboxes, test beds. We must work hard on preparation, localization, different industrial and DLT standards, and we must involve in regulatory frameworks, engineering. And first of all, we must to share our knowledge and experience for as more as possible human and specialists, using, for example, webinars, different types of communications. So thanks for your time. If you have time to questions, I'm glad to answer on your questions.
Thank you very much, Roman Kravchenko, the CEO of 482.solutions. And we have a couple of minutes for a short question, very important question. Roman, could you please explain us what are the main challenges within the transactive energy evolution process you mentioned on your phone files?
Now, today, the key challenges for us, for industrial players, for industrial to evolve, we have no single approach and standards how we can build this new age platform. It's main challenges, and the main restriction of this movement as legacy regulation in different countries, this key restriction to new products, new solutions, new business model, and we must work hard together to disrupt this restriction from government, from different regulation body. We must to help this regulatory body to transform in the right way and as fast as possible to achieve the humanity sustainability and generate a new age of value.
Well, thank you again, and thank you for your efforts to organize such a brilliant webinar about innovations in energy. We wish you good luck on this interesting path of collaborating, conjunction the innovations, blockchain and energy. It's so important, and your work you do with your peers. Thank you very much again. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm online applause to Roman Kravchenko, the CEO of 482.solutions. Please remember this name. And now we are coming with a short 10 minutes break. We are going to watch a little promo video, and at 11:30 a.m. Emanuele Volpi from DTEC, the largest Ukrainian private investor in energy sector, will be joining us. Stay tuned, don't switch, and let's have a short break. Let's watch the video. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you are feeling all right and we're alive. We're still alive, we're still online, and you're watching the Innovation in Energy online webinar hosted by 482.solutions. And now it's time to explore large enterprises. And I'm very happy to say that DTEC is joining us. And let me say some words about DTEC. DTEC is the largest private investor in Ukraine's energy sector. DTEC Group produces coal and natural gas, generates electricity at thermal, solar, and wind power plants, distributes electricity, supplies electricity to end consumers, provides energy efficient solutions, and develops a network of EV charging stations. In 2019, DTEC's capital investment totaled Ukraine hryvnias to 23 billion Ukraine hryvnias, and moreover, the company paid yuan to 3.4 billion of taxes, and DTEC employs 70,000 people. The company is 100% owned by SCM Limited, and ultimate beneficial owner is Rinat Akhmedov. And I'm very glad, very happy to say that Emanuele Volpe is joining us right now online. He is the Chief Information Officer of DTEC. He speaks Russian, Italian, English, and we are very happy to have such an honored speaker. So, Emanuele, please welcome. You're online. Give us your Italian emotions with your vision. Please welcome.
Ciao a tutti. Okay. A couple of words in Italian. Okay, let me say thanks a lot that I've been invited to attend this event. Let's say again a couple of words regarding DTEC. Now, first of all, I'm a CIO, Chief, not Information Officer, Chief Innovation Officer. So I'm responsible and I deal within innovation for DTEC. That, has been said, is the largest private investor in energy in Ukraine. DTEC is structured on 6 different businesses. We are talking about oil and gas. We are talking about machinery building, coal extraction from mines, logistic and thermal generation is what we call DTEC Energo. Then we're talking about renewables. We have 1 gigawatt installed power generation with renewables within in Ukraine. Then we are talking about DTEC grids with almost 200,000 kilometers lines all over Ukraine. We're talking about DTEC trading and Yasno. Yasno, that is our interface between the company towards the end customer. So a little bit of numbers again. DTEC is producing almost 30 terawatt hours of power, and we have 20% of market share. We are talking about that we are the largest electricity exporter in Ukraine with 6 gigawatt hours. We are talking about that we have 1 gigawatt of installed wind and solar power. We deal with 5.5 million customers, and we are the largest, gas private company in Ukraine, 1.7 billion cubic meter last year. So we are the largest, we are the biggest, and so on and so forth. But do you remember those companies? At that time, those the companies were the biggest and the largest. We are talking about Koda, we are talking about Polaroid. I am almost 50, and I remember when I was, I guess, 10, that my uncle, she brought 1 Polaroid camera. It was, a breakthrough experience. Before you should take a photo, you should wait till the end, I mean 24, 36, how to say, photos, then bring to the special shop, wait a few days, then you should come, you should pay, you should take, and sometimes photos were not good. Sometimes were not, I mean, the photos you were waiting for. When appeared Polaroid, it was a breakthrough. I mean, you could take a photo, you could right away see what you are taking. I mean, it was unbelievable. I was so happy. Think about Blockbuster. I mean, in the 90s, when they opened, in 2000, they were opening one shop in the States every 18 hours. Maybe not everybody knows what a Blockbuster was. At that time, if you were willing to watch a movie, you could rent in Blockbuster videotapes, and then not going to the, how to say, to the cinema, but at home, quiet in your, how to say, nest, as we say, watching those movies, and not only once, you could watch as many times. Okay, all this company went into bankruptcy. As we say, most of them, they were, I mean, from the States, they applied for Chapter 11. I mean, when a company that was at the top, I mean, disappeared. And why disappear? Since they, I mean, were not introducing the right innovation and finding new products. Now, a question to all of you. You see here a wallet. You see here an iPhone. Do you feel more scared in losing your wallet on your smartphone, or your smartphone? Let's say, I'm sorry to say, not so innovative. I feel sometimes I am more scared if I lose my wallet. Despite in the wallet, sometimes I see my colleagues that are from Gen Z, they do not even have cash, but only cards. I guess last generation, they do not even have a wallet. They have only a smartphone. So what's going on? Something is changing within the business. And sometimes we are not ready. My main question is, you have heard about DTEC. DTEC is a typical utility company. So taking into account what's going on in the world, do you think are utility companies still needed in, let's say, 10, maybe 8, or even 5 years? I mean, is DTEC turning like one of those previous companies like Polaroid, Blockbuster, and so on and so forth? To avoid this kind of, I don't want to say good situation, we have created within DTEC a unit that is called Innovation DTEC. Innovation DTEC is the link between our business, and you see here we have 6 businesses, and the external world. Within DTEC, we have embraced what it is called the open innovation approach. What does open innovation approach mean? Open innovation means that if you would like to run innovation, you need to rely not only on internal resources, but also on external ones. Within DTEC, we have a very good people, specialists that they know everything about so-called power business. But we see that sometimes this is not enough. So we need to be open. We need to allow others, I mean, understanding our strategy, and then be open to get their proposal. What we have seen that on the outer world, there are 6 what we call stakeholders that are, I mean, innovation driven, and especially they have innovation embedded. At first place, we put all the time startups. Startups sometimes have some kind of, crazy approach or not understandable approach for a big corporation. But we know that they bring this kind of disruptive proposals that it's better we analyze than to say, guys, you are a startup. You are not a corporation. We know better than you. We are the largest. And sometimes maybe they disrupt a corporation. A couple of examples. I am an aerospace engineer. So when I attended 30 years ago the Polytechnical Institute of Milan, for me it was a dream to work at NASA in the States, or for example in ESA in Europe. 30 years ago, I could never imagine that a guy like Elon Musk was so crazy and launch a rocket into the space. Second example, you know that several years ago on almost every office, you had a phone, a stationary phone with the label Siemens. Then a couple of guys at that time, they went to Siemens and asked, we are thinking that there is a new technology that could be interesting to develop and that could disrupt your, traditional stationary phone approach. Those guys were proposing a VoIP technology. At that time, Siemens told, sorry, we are not interested, since we are the best. We know what to do. We know how to do. Our market share is one of the biggest one. Similar, think about Nokia. Okay, so those two people, they were Cisco, and they developed in a parallel way the VoIP technology. Now I guess I see more Cisco phones everywhere than Siemens. So startups, they have this kind of approach that sometimes it's not understandable, it's crazy, but we are learning a lot from them. Then on second place, we have customers. Then suppliers, funds, universities, and corporates. We opened our unit, Innovation Tech, a couple of years ago. We started at that time to deal with startups. And dealing with startups is not so easy, since you have a totally different language. But at that time, we got into our, hopper, more than 400 startups, and we came at the end already with almost 20 pilot projects. Then later on, I will discuss a little bit what does pilot project mean. So we had at that time pilot project that turned out after the pilot that is called an experiment time into a commercial agreement. The first startup that approached to us, and all the time I am proud to say, it's Everscan. It is a startup still now that approached us with this proposal. We have a good technology that thanks to drones, they can fly over a building, and we have a good software that is, calculating the volume of the building. Okay, we replied, yes, but we are not interested in having this kind of proposal, since DTech does not deal with buildings. Anyhow, we applied a creative, approach, and it turned out that thanks to this approach, we could use this technology not to measure volume of the buildings, but to measure the volume of our coal warehouses that we have in our power plants. Actually, this technology is used in our power plants. Before, we were measuring the coal volume, let's say by hands. And now, in 20 minutes, I mean, a drone is flying over the warehouse, the coal warehouse, and we can get already a 3D scanning with the volume of the coal. Let me say, it's important that we have used a creativity approach. You know that there is this worldwide formula, let's say, that is say innovation is equal to creativity multiplied by appeal multiplied by execution. What does it mean? In order to have an innovative product, you need to have creativity, appeal, and execution. If one of those three terms is zero, there is no innovation. For example, if you don't have creativity, but you have execution, so you have a good project is going to the end, and you have an appeal, something, how to say, interesting, it is not innovation. If you have creativity and you have a good execution, but you don't have appeal, it is not innovation. Appeal is something that you like. I mean, within innovation, we start all the time with what we like. I mean, we are, how to say, human being, and a good part of our having a human being is our sentiments. So we need to have something that we like. Third point, if execution is equal to zero, it is not innovation, it's only an idea. So moving forward, after Everscan, we had other projects, for example, Quarsmarting, Tesla Suite. Let me say a couple of words. Tesla Suite is a startup from Minsk. And now we see what's going on with our, how to say, neighbor in Belarus. They are, how to say, they have engineered a suite that you can wear, and you can feel different sensation according to a different algorithm. So we are using this kind of suite to train our colleagues towards some kind of high dangerous operation. Since we understood that the first level of training is you simply keep a book and you read. Sometimes we see that the first level is reading and sometimes not understanding. The second level is understanding. Then, when you have the book, you can, for example, copy and paste to a computer. That is a different technology. The third level of technology is feeling. And I am pretty sure I've tested this technology. I'm pretty sure that when you make some kind of operation that are not right, you right away avoid to make again. Besides the external world, we have the internal one. The internal one is composed of our employees. So our employees as the first source of innovation. And we found that there are employees that they work in some kind of, how to say, job, but they are more skilled in something other. What does it mean? For example, you have an accounting that 8 hours per day is dealing with accounting. Maybe in the evening, he is very skilled in 3D printing. Since he has an hobby, he has some kind of attitude towards 3D printing. So we have created those, how to say, 8 technological communities where everybody within the company can apply and join and share skills, information. We prepare webinar. We also prepare workshop in order to, how to say, share experience and come to a different products. Within our company, we are launched hydrogen project. I will tell you a couple of, later on, a couple of words about this. It started thanks to our community. Now, in order to be open towards the outside world, you should not be scared and share what are your needs. So we have created our platform. It's a public platform where we have published there our challenges. Challenges are what our business needs and in which way we can get support from you. There is now a very short video that will explain about our platform. Let me switch on. You have seen that in the video there were 3 horizons. First of all, you understood that innovation behind energy boundaries. What does it mean? Now DTEC is a power company, is an energy company. Are we sure that in a few years DTEC will still be an energy company? So, in order to answer to this question, we have prepared 3 different layers of development. The first one, what we call Horizon 1, is everything related to the actual business. What does it mean? Everything related to generation and distribution of power. We have identified a few, challenges, like, for example, increase efficiency, safety, and environmental friendliness of our business. And we are developing those directions. Anyhow, second layer is related to what it is called a Horizon 2. It is related to not only generation and distribution, but to everything closer to generation and distribution. For example, we have different projects going on or starting to be developed. The first one, most important, is related to our battery storage. The second one to hydrogen. Third layer, what is called Horizon 3, is everything that it is not related to generation and distribution of power. And we are thinking about new business models related to data, platformification, customer offering, and so on and so forth. First message, that if you have something to propose, please enter into our site, dtec.com. You will see innovation. If you click on innovation, first of all, you will be able to read in 3 languages our challenges. This is basically what we need now. And second, you have possibility to apply. If you have something interesting, please apply. We go through all what we propose, what we receive, and provide feedback within a defined number of days. Also, if the feedback is not positive, since sometimes you support a new idea also providing a negative feedback. Here you can see our updated innovation challenges related to Horizon 1. Here you can see two main, milestone we have set for Horizon 2. I'm talking about energy storage and hydrogen. Energy storage, we have just signed with Honeywell contract. They will supply hardware for our energy storage project. Basically, they will provide different containers with inside the energy storage, along with other, different amenities like energy management system and so on and so forth. Second point, you see here, DTEC is the first company in Ukraine that became a member of the Hydrogen Europe Association. We believe hydrogen is the future of not only the energy, but is the future of companies like ours. And we are starting now to understand which kind of business model could be suitable for this interesting technology. Within Horizon 3, we have two different projects going on related to Yasno and DTEC Grids. Yasno is our interface with the customer. Grids is bringing the connection to the customer. With Yasno, we are thinking how to launch different services besides the retail main business selling electricity and in future gas. And with Grids, we are starting to understand how to set behavioral data of our consumers, and then accordingly provide more targeted proposals. This is all.
Grazie, Signore Emanuele Volpe. I really love Italian speakers because they are always super emotional, super energetic, literally energetic, because we are talking about innovation in energy. Emanuele, what is the secret of your excellent energy? May you share with us? Italian wine, Italian food, or beautiful ladies in Ukraine. What is the secret?
No, you need to have, a good support from the general director. Since, your mission is to bring disruption before somebody other will bring. So you will have a lot of enemies within the companies, but luckily what I have to say here in Ukraine, especially in DTEC, I have found a lot of very clever people that support. So first point, the success is something related that you need to have big support from the general director. I mean, I report directly to the tech general director, Maxim Timchenko. When something needs support from him, so you need to be able to send a message through WhatsApp, Maxim, I need your help. And second point, you need to have a good team. I mean, I have to say I'm more than lucky that here in Innovation Tech, we are 15 people in this unit. Then we have more than 30 innovation focal points within the business. And they are good people, open to something unknown. And, from human point of view, it's all the time scaring. When you open the door, you don't know what's going on behind the door. So I'm more than lucky that I have a good team that is supporting me. Otherwise, one guy alone cannot do anything.
Sounds great. I really love your answer. Ladies and gentlemen, please give your warm online applauses with Italian sound to Signor Emanuele Volpe, the Chief Innovation Officer of DTEC, the largest private investor in Ukrainian energy sector. And we are switching to a short 10 minutes break. And after this, we will have Miriam Ruslano from Energy Web Foundation. Stay tuned, don't switch, and let's watch a little video about our webinar. Stay tuned, don't switch. Dear attendees, hope you're feeling all right. We are continuing to broadcast our live webinar about innovations in energy, and right now is the blockchain time. I don't know about you, but me personally, I really love blockchain and consider blockchain as the main innovation in today's economy, in today's life, since the internet was invented 30 years ago. And blockchain really has the potential in energy sector, in energy transmission. And right now we're having a lady speaker from the Energy Web Foundation. Let me say a couple of words about Energy Web Foundation. First of all, here we're having Miriam Ruslanova. Miriam, it's great to have you on. And let me say a couple of words about Energy Web Foundation before I will give you words. Energy Web Foundation. What is Energy Web Foundation? This is a global member-based non-profit organization with a mission to accelerate the transition to a low-carbon, customer-centric electricity system by unleashing the potential of blockchain and decentralized technologies. And Miriam Ruslanova is a regulatory analyst of Energy Web Foundation, and she's going to speak about how decentralized technologies like blockchain support the energy transition. My personal thanks for you, Miriam. You're online. Thanks for joining us, and please welcome, give us your vision about this super interesting topic.
Thank you very much, Eugene, for such a wonderful introduction. I think that was one of the best ones in my life. I'm very honored to represent the Energy Web Foundation, or EWF, today at in this webinar, and share some of the insights and experiences that we have seen in this 3.5 years of our hard work. So for today's session, we have several sections, and I'd like to very quickly start with who we are. Eugene has already provided a very good description, but I'd just like to dive in a little bit deeper so that you have more context. Then I'd like to go into the concrete case studies of how we're applying the decentralized technologies that we're building today in the energy sector. And so that would be the two case studies. The first one is the renewable energy traceability and tradability. And the second one is the DER integration. And as the end, I'd like to address of different opportunities of how you can engage as an energy market participant or even as a startup. Having said that, I'd like to point out that there is no session on what is blockchain and why it's important for the energy sector and how. That's actually a discussion for a whole another day. But today, what I want to focus is how it is applied. So for a second, if you're not familiar with what blockchain is, don't worry about that. What we're going to look at is what it does. So let's start with the first section of who we are. Energy Web Foundation, or EWF, is a nonprofit. We are building open source, meaning publicly available, decentralized, meaning including also blockchain, solutions specifically for the energy sector. That's pretty vague and very general, but don't worry, I'm gonna go into this statement a bit later, and I hope you'll get an idea of what we do. We also help different energy market participants, be it utilities, grid operators, energy companies, energy startups, and innovation companies, to co-develop, test, and implement decentralized applications that either create new business models or accelerate solutions for the energy transition. So here's the snapshot, an overview of of our technology stack that we refer to as the EWDOS, or Energy Web Decentralized Operating System. This stack probably looks quite complex and a bit scary. I'm aware of that. So let's simplify it a bit. There are two components that you see here, the purple one and the green one. The purple one represents the digital infrastructure layer, or the technology layer, that we as EWF are focusing on and continuously building. So that's the first component to who we are, our technology. The second component that you see here is the green, that those are the applications. So the software applications that you use to make value and to accelerate the energy transition. So those are the applications that are being run and implemented by the market participants and our members. And so this is the second component to who we are, our ecosystem. So here you see some of the examples of our members who are either in the pilot or commercial solution stage, but there are many more, and your application can be also here. So just to summarize, so there are two components to our identity, our tech and our community. The purple layer represents as our tech, so that's where we're heavily working on. The blue layer are the applications, so the practical applications that are run by our members. Now let's look at some of the separate components in the tech stack. And the first one, of course, is the blockchain or the energy web chain. What's interesting about it is that Energy Web Chain was launched last year by us last June, and it's the first public blockchain that was specifically designed for the energy sector. It's governed by the energy and technology market participants and provides pretty high throughput, low costs, and features for transparency, but also preserving privacy. So the energy web chain is the backbone of the digital infrastructure. But what to do with it, right? Like, I mean, there is blockchain, but you need to somehow make sense of it. You need to somehow to work with it. That's where another component comes in place that I would like to discuss, which are the software development toolkits. They help you build your applications and leverage what has been done before. And so far, we have been working on two software development toolkits or SDKs. The first one is Origin, and the second one is Flex. So Origin speaks for itself. It focuses on traceability of energy origin. So so far that has been electricity, so renewably generated electricity for us, but it can be also adapted to other low carbon energy, like for example, green or blue hydrogen, biogas, etc. And then we have the second one is Flex, which is for digital DER integration onto the grid. And I'm gonna cover both of this in detail. So using this SDKs, there are the applications that I mentioned already that you see here, and we can generally categorize them into the two groups. As I mentioned to you, Origin for traceability of renewable energy and Flex for DER integration. So that's a very quick story of who we are. The bottom line is what you can think of us is the party that is building the shared general digital infrastructure that can be used by anybody who wants to build decentralized solutions. So that's the role of EWF. Now, I'd like to move on to the first case study to illustrate how this technology can be actually used in the real world. And that is with Origin and renewable energy traceability and tradability. So to summarize, Origin is a tool for building software applications for optimized renewable energy tracking and trading of the associated attributes. You might not be familiar with the latter concept. I'll cover it in a second. So as a reminder, this is the first category that I mentioned previously. So speaking of the energy attribute certificates, Origin started with these ones. The energy attribute certificate is basically a certificate that proves that 1 megawatt hour of electricity has been produced and consumed from renewable energy sources. Why it's there? So either for voluntary purposes when you want to declare that you have consumed renewable electricity, or for regulatory purposes, if the government actually puts mandate to disclose the sources of electricity, or if the government puts targets for you to consume or for you to generate certain volume of renewable electricity. So we have started with the renewable electricity certificates and design origin to cover the entire life cycle of this industry, starting from creating identities for devices that generate electricity, adding them to the digital registry on blockchain, enabling these devices to issue and receive certificates based on their generation, and having them trade. Now, this is the key. Being able to trade the certificates that were generated in a transparent and accurate way is actually enabling renewable electricity procurement. And that is the whole idea for Origin, is to make sure that you scale renewable electricity procurement markets and move towards the future where anybody can sell and buy renewable electricity. Because today, what happens is that only large-scale buyers are able to do so. And you might be familiar with organizations like RE100 that are doing an incredible job. That's the corporate initiative to procure 100% renewable electricity. But unfortunately, they represent the one tiny percent of the market that would like to participate in renewable electricity markets. So the idea for Origin is to democratize access to clean energy. And right now, we have several projects going on where Energy Web Origin is being leveraged to build marketplaces for renewable electricity procurement with the help of the energy attribute certificates. And so these are the examples that that we have. So one of the flagship projects for us is with PTT, an energy conglomerate. Imagine a Shell in Asia, where we co-develop a platform in Thailand for procuring the IRECs there. So IREC is the standard for the energy attribute certificates in the emerging markets. Likewise, we also have a project with the innovation startup Photon in Turkey, where the idea is also to streamline IREC procurement. And the same with Mercados Eléctricos, which is a retailer in Central America. We also have another member, SP Group, in Singapore, that has all the resources and competences in-house, and they're not resorting to our help to use the Origin toolkit. So they use some of the parts themselves to also create a marketplace for IRECs. And likely, we're also going to start some of the new projects in Brazil, Colombia, and hopefully in Ukraine. As you can see, all of these projects that I mentioned so far are dealing with the same standard called the IREC standard. Why is it important? So first of all, is that we're dealing with the existing regulations and standards, so we're not creating our own. That's number one. Number two is all of those markets are emerging markets in terms of renewable energy. So we have gotten a lot of the momentum in this type of environments. However, Origin is standard agnostic, and it can work with different standards. Like, for example, it can also work with the guarantees of origin in Europe. It can work with the renewable energy certificates in the US, the NFFCs in Japan, etc. And one example of where we're working in the US is with PJM, the ISO on the East Coast, where we are investigating how Origin can be used to modernize the registry of renewable electricity generation. So now I'd like to just show you visually how it looks on one of the examples with Photon in Turkey. As you might remember, Photon is the innovation startup based out of Istanbul, and together we're using Origin to create a marketplace for IREC procurement. So this is the pilot platform, and that's how, like, one of the features of how it looks is that a seller or renewable electricity generator can log onto this platform. It's a website, but it's a blockchain-based platform, and the seller can register their devices and connect the devices in a way that the data from the generation is being securely recorded on the platform. And so based on this data, the seller can also request that the certificates are issued. And so normally how it works is that there is an independent external issuing body that would either approve or reject this request. And that's what you see here on the platform is you can have this, simple button of doing that. Normally today, how it's done is through PDF forms and email communications that you can yourself imagine can lead to a lot of the human error and not very user-friendly. Here's another example of the features that's for the buyer. So the same website, the same platform can be also used for companies that would like to buy renewable electricity certificates or the IREX in Turkey. So it's as simple as going to the market and looking through the available supply. So as a buyer here, I can input my category. So for example, I wanted to look at the supply available from a certain region. And as soon as there is a supply available, I can basically put a bid on it or put a request to buy. So that's the feature that's illustrated here. There are many more, but I don't think we have the time to go through them. So just to summarize, so far, Origin has been extensively used for renewable electricity certificate markets. However, the logic of tracing low carbon fuels is very similar across different products, be it electricity, be it biofuels, hydrogen, oil generation with CCS, so carbon capture systems. So therefore, a lot of the technology and the software we have developed with Origin can be actually adapted to other markets. So for example, the application can be used for verifying that your electric vehicle is being charged with green electricity. So that would be the green EV charging. Another option is to have exactly the same application for tracking and trading certificates from green hydrogen, which is a very small market today, but has a huge potential in the next 10 years as the European Commission directive has come out very recently and outlines hydrogen as one of the most important fuels for the energy transition. Another use case is, as I mentioned, to track production of low carbon gas or low carbon oil or plants that use certain techniques to lower down their carbon footprint. So those are the examples where Origin can be implemented and where the technical roadmap can be very wide. Having said that, I'd like to move to the next case study, which is quite different from Origin and deals with Flex or integrating DRs into the grid. So in summary, Flex is the second software development toolkit that I've mentioned, and it's a tool for onboarding DRs or distributed energy resources like your battery, like your electric vehicle, storage facility, to digitally onboard it to make sure that you can provide certain services. You as an owner, you can earn revenues, and you as a grid operator can use these DR services to balance the grid better. As a reminder, here's where it stands as a category, and here's the examples of the projects that we have. So why is there an objective for EW Flex? It's more relevant in competitive or deregulated markets. Like, for example, it's becoming more relevant for Ukraine, which has gone through liberalization pretty recently. And the reason for it is that there are many more DRs appearing in the market every year, and the trend is going to persist. Integrating these DRs onto the grid is essential for being able to balance the grid and for being able to exploit the full potential of this clean energy resources. However, today it's at its infancy and pretty problematic. It's pretty siloed. In a lot of cases, grid operators actually have no idea where the DRs are and what to do with them, how to share the data across different stakeholders, like, for example, DSO, TSO, aggregators, etc. So seeing this issue, we decided to focus on this toolkit Flex to exactly address this problem and be able to share data across multiple actors from the DERs and enable these DERs to provide services and have efficient settlement for that. So here's an example of the pilot where we used EW Flex to illustrate the technical feasibility of what we're doing. So this pilot was done in cooperation with IDIS, a grid operator in Germany, and Sonnen, a battery company. The idea was to see if a digital solution can help avoid curtailment of green electricity and direct it to a storage facility that then would provide flexibility services to the grid. And so that's exactly what we did. Here on the graph, you see that there is a renewable energy facility that's operated by IDIS. So that one was located in the north of Germany. It generates a certain amount of electricity. So one portion goes to the grid, and normally what happens to the other one, it gets curtailed because you don't need them more. So with this application, what we did is we tried to direct this excess amount to the residential storage or residential batteries of Sonnen. So for the pilot, there was 17 of them. These batteries were basically offering flexibility services to the grid at a time when they could, so offering certain capacity to the grid. And for that, IDIS would, so if the offer was eligible and if the offer was meeting the conditions of the grid, IDIS would accept the service, and the payment for that service would go to Sonnen, and with the help of the cryptocurrency or the stable coin DAI. Everything happened on our test network Volta to exactly see how this can play out in real life. So this project was at the pilot stage. However, the results showed that with the help of the flexibility application and with the help of storing the excess energy, IDIS was actually able to get to the grid balancing close to the ideal scenario. So that's number one. Number two, Sonnen was able to see that the batteries can generate additional revenue. Both parties managed to see that this revenue or the settlement was done in a pretty efficient way because of the use of the blockchain. And that is, DRs are pretty small. So the services they're offering are also very small. And the payments they're offering for flexibility, for example, for 1 day, are in the cent range, not even in the dollars range. So you can imagine that, for such small payments, you need an efficient system that doesn't charge you high transaction costs. And blockchain is perfect exactly for that. So you can, because it makes every transaction financially viable. So those were the lessons learned from the pilot. The same logic was applied to another pilot with ours, and that was with the Austrian power grid. The name speaks for itself who they are. So the concept was also to see how we can digitally onboard a battery to create a decentralized digital identity that would then be stored in a registry. And this with the help of this identity, the owner of the DER would be able to provide flexibility services and participate in the Austrian balancing market, specifically the automated frequency regulation reserve with the 2-second load following service. And so the pilot was serving as the base to understand if the solution can be scaled to accommodate 1 million of the DERs onto the grid, because that's what that's what the grid operator can anticipate in the medium term of how many DERs can be onboarded. And so the logic was exactly the same. We went through the DER and the DER owner registration and creating the decentralized identity, or the DID. The identity was then being reviewed or approved by a certified body. So in the case of Austria, that was the installer, who had the power to review if the information was correct, if the DER exactly exists. And then the DERs could be then qualified into participating in several markets. So, so in this example, that was AFRR, the 2-second load. But it can also mean that your DERs can participate in various markets. So it can also mean that several stakeholders can access your data. So, for example, DSOs can access your data for load voltage. Aggregator can, for load voltage management, aggregators can access the data of the DRs for capacity markets, etc. So with a single ID that was created on blockchain, so with a single DID, you can participate in various markets. And so that way the information is not siloed, and that way the information is actually belonging to the shared platform. Once you're there, once the owner was there and the information was transparently shared, the DERs can also offer their flexibility services. So, for example, a certain capacity to take from the grid to make the grid operators' lives easier. And if the offer matched their grid's requirements, then of course there was a financial settlement. For the purposes of the pilot, some of the steps were done manually just to see if that works and if the market design should be changed. But in an ideal situation, you as a DR owner wouldn't be sitting there and creating offers for your battery manually. So the battery would be programmed, or there would be an algorithm to do it in an automated way. You would be just there to provide some guidance on your criteria, on your demand, and for example, on your preference for price. So the pilot has seemed to be successful, and you can see more information on our website about the pilot itself. And the next step now is to understand of how can we use these findings to scale to a commercial solution that would then be used exactly for the grid management. So that is about Flex. Just as a summary, Flex is a tool for grid flexibility, for creating the grid flexibility services and for onboarding DERs in a digital and more streamlined way. Now, I'm coming to the last section of my talk today, and that is how you can engage if you're interested and if this work caught your eye. You, being an energy company or a grid operator or an EV company, an OEM or a regulator, you're most welcome to join our community, to get in touch with us, test different use cases that you think are viable in your market, or even explore the space if you're not sure about what use case is best for you. And that way you would be contributing to the open source technology development, and you'd be also exploring the best solutions that could enhance your business. So here's just a summary of what you can do with us if you belong to any of these categories. So that being said, this is the last slide for me. Thank you so much for your attention. If you kept up with me for the entire presentation, I hope it wasn't too confusing. And here are my contact details, so feel free to drop me a message if you have any questions, feedback, criticism, anything like that. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Mary and Ruslanova. We're giving a warm line applause here. And short question comment here. What kind of challenges have you faced when working on this different projects, may I answer?
Yeah, I mean, there are several types of challenges. One of them is definitely on the regulatory side, because the technology is pretty novel. In a lot of the projects that we were working in, there wasn't clear-cut guidance from the regulators on how to best design an application in a market where you're doing this. So, so the best way for us to resolve this challenge was to actively engage the regulators in providing feedback early on. So for example, with the DER integration solution, there's still no clear understanding of how exactly these DERs are going to be participating in the wholesale market, for example, or how would the taxation work on the financial settlement, and should it work, or should there be a tax subsidy, for example? So to answer all of these questions, we really call the regulators to engage. And the ideal scenario, of course, it would be if they create a sandbox. Another challenge that that we saw was really about user education. And a lot of the people not very well understanding of how the applications work, and being very scared of the crypto world, because indeed it's pretty new. So what we're doing extensively at EWF is organizing this different educational sessions like lecture style, but also do it together with us. So going through how do you access a blockchain-based application? How do you manage your private keys? Are there any ways that you don't have to manage your private keys, for example, etc.? So those are the two big ones that we saw. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I really enjoy your talk and hope our viewers do. And ladies and gentlemen, give a warm line welcome and applauses to Miriam Ruslanova, regulatory analyst from Energy Web Foundation, especially for the blockchain and energy. And now we're switching to a short 10 minutes break. And in 12:50 p.m., our keynote speaker, Meher Cheba, will be joining us with an excellent presentation. So stay tuned. Let's watch a short video. See ya. Ladies and gentlemen, hope you're fine and alive, and we're alive online too. This is Broadcasting of Innovation in Energy online webinar brought to you by 482.solutions. And I would just like to say, you guys, that you're super lucky because right now we're having our super keynote speaker, and please give a warmest online welcome you ever done in your life to Mr. Meher Chabo, the founder and CEO of C Technologies. He's broadcasting from Paris, France right now. C Technologies, the entity supported by General Electric and focusing on digital venture capital, board advisory, and digital energy transition ventures. And Mr. Chabo is PhD in energy. He has 30 years of private energy industries, digital and venture leadership roles, and 15 years of public board leadership roles. And just listen for his styles. The founder and CEO of C Technologies, the board observer of Greencom Networks, SVP and Global Chief Innovation Officer of GE Digital Energy Solutions, General Manager Energy Industries for Europe, Middle East and Africa at SAP, and co-founder SAP Corporate Venturing for 21 years, Director of Software Engineering, Utilities and Telecom at Capgemini, the Chair of the Governing Board at REEP, Chair of the ETIP Batteries European Digital Task Force, Co-Chair of the Smart Grids, Board Member of Ermines. I'm super excited of having right now Mr. Meher Chabo. Mr. Chabo, you're online. You're welcome. Please give us your vision at topic entitled Digital Accelerating the Energy Transition and Batteries Leadership of Europe. We are listening to you carefully.
Thank you for the introduction, and I'm really happy to be here today to present the role of the digitalization as a major innovation to help the energy transition for a decarbonized world. I will be speaking very much about my involvement for the last 15 years in the smart grids, digital energy transition in Europe, and also the activities we are doing in terms of using the digitalization of the batteries to accelerate that transition to a decarbonized Europe. Now, if we look at these different cities, what would be in common between all these beautiful cities that we have in Europe? I should have maybe added Moscow or Kiev or other beautiful cities as well in Europe. What they have in common is the investments all these cities they are doing since many years, and the roadmap they have for energy efficiency, for carbon neutrality, for more renewables deployment in these cities, and much better transportation and logistics. If we consider the energy production and the energy consumption in buildings, and if we consider the whole transportation and logistics, this probably represents 60 to 70% of the emissions. And a lot of these cities are focusing on these sectors. Now, they are investing on the energy transition and better climate. If you look at these numbers are huge, actually. So today, Europe has announced $1 trillion in terms of public and private investments for a Green Deal to help preparing till 2050 Europe with a cleaner economy, and use that cleaner economy for creating jobs and re-dynamizing the economy as well. We estimate that a program of a Horizon Europe, which is the funding of Europe for innovation and research and innovation in different sectors of the economy, to be 100 billion, and 30 to 35% of that is dedicated to energy and climate. There is also an innovation fund helping the innovation in different sectors, and particularly in the energy and climate, which is also about 10 billion. Huge investments that were estimated to be around 250 billion annual market by 2025, and also huge investments in the energy efficiency, in IoT, Internet of Things technologies, whether it's for massive customers or commercial industrial customers. Distributed energy resources, about 110 billion in 2017, and this is growing fast to close to 380 billion in 2026. And smart cities is growing to 135 billion in 2021, according to the IDC. So that's good to have milestones. In Europe, there are milestones 2020, which is an exceptional year. I mean, nobody expected 15 years ago when the targets for 2020 were fixed that we will have a very exceptional year, particularly with the COVID and what's happening and the need for resiliency. But luckily, the people believe and the states believe that energy and climate investments will be contributing, despite the COVID, will be contributing to still creating jobs and redynamizing the economies. Other targets in 2030, more targets 2050, where here we should look for a decarbonized Europe. Now, in the work that happened with a committee looking after the energy transition committee of the EDIPSNet in Europe, there was a report produced in 2018, mid of 2018, which explains that we should look at the energy as a holistic view. We should not look at the electricity or gas or heating and so on separately. We should look at all of that together as a holistic view. So the convergence of a view on energy, and then also look at the different sources of converting things. So converting from power to heat, from heat to electricity, and the importance of the different liquefied and hydrogen and so on. All of these energy sources and their conversion will be part also of the landscape, and the importance of having the data and the digitalization across the whole infrastructure. This is why we have produced a couple of reports, a short one for policymakers and a more technical one about the digitalization, the technologies, the level of their maturity, and then the use cases that are needed for the digitalization, which could help with creating more flexibility of the electricity, better managing the peak demand, better managing as well the shift to a decentralized energy generation and renewables everywhere, whether it's photovoltaics, wind turbines, or other energy communities. So what are the areas of digitalization that are today, I would not say will, but are today innovative, and on which a lot of investments are going on, and these investments will be growing? So we have been very good, I would say, into managing processes across the whole energy infrastructure. So how to run a power plant, how to run the assets of a power plant, how to run the production of the energy and bringing the energy to the transmission and distribution networks, to manage the whole transmission and distribution grid networks, and to manage as well the commercial selling to the end customers, contracting with them, billing them, following all the customers and doing all the customer relationship management. So all of these processes, typically products like SAP, for example, do it well and cover it very well across the whole value chain. Where the need is about the data and predicting what will happen in the future, and this is predictive analytics. Predicting when something wrong will happen in a plant or will happen at wind turbines, predicting when something wrong will happen, for example, in the infrastructure, or like networks, and predicting also the output of power, the demand of the customers, and matching the whole thing that you have an optimal system. Predicting the peak demand as well, and how we can shift it or reduce it, that at the end we don't continue to build a new infrastructure, but to optimize with the infrastructure that we have in place, the customer's demand and also the supply for these customers. So predictive analytics is the big thing, and this is where we speak about digital platforms, and we speak about collecting all the data, running all the data with data scientist models, and then predicting what will happen and preparing the whole infrastructure to avoid bottlenecks. Simulation is the big areas why the role of the data scientist is important. So we're moving from just reporting on things and reporting on data to more simulate and predict what will happen. If you take other sectors than energy, like the medicine, for example, there is a lot of prediction as well. Models in where we invest to predict, for example, the cancer, to predict the genomics data. There is a lot of sectors, finance sector as well, where the prediction is extremely important and where people are watching, where this or that share price would be. The energy sector also is in a big need of that. We use the digital twin to get the mirror of what's happening on the physical assets, physical infrastructure, and on that mirror image, using the data, we could predict what will happen to the tubes, what will happen to the networks, what will happen to the turbines or the pumps or whatever transformers or equipments we have. Cybersecurity to get the whole infrastructure robust. The whole industrial IoT is about collecting the data from the assets and running that through data science models, and all kind of electronic marketplaces that could help exchanging, for example, between distribution grid companies and retailers. And then we see all the kind of solutions around digital workers, digital inspections, using sometimes drones, the whole management of the energy portfolio, management of the peak demand through energy flexibility, and integration of a massive number of distributed energy resources on the grid. All of that has to happen using technologies of AI, machine learning, and a growing use of blockchain, making sure that we comply with the environment, we keep the security of supply and independence of the energy as much as possible vis-a-vis the other exporters of energy, and then have an open markets where you have competition and where you have any customer who could request any service in the country where he is, or in the region where he or she is, like for example here the European Union. So when we speak about the transformation of the energy and the transition, we speak about 3Ds. 3Ds is decarbonizing the energy, is reducing the carbon footprint, is getting to the carbon neutrality. Secondly is about the decentralization, is getting from the picture, which is here like a classical linear picture from left to right, to something which is more decentral, where you have generators of energy, clean energy everywhere, photovoltaics, wind turbine, energy communities, and also battery storage everywhere. And the third D is about digitalization. We cannot manage what we cannot measure. We have to manage the system in a more sophisticated way, both ways, predict what the demand is, and provide and supply the energy to match that demand. And digitalization has an incremental value. According to the World Economic Forum, $2 trillion of value can be unlocked due to the digitalization which is needed in the whole energy sector. And then you have the electrification. We will have more and more increase of demand. And that increase of demand will come also from the shift from the oil and gas and gas stations and thermal cars to more electrical cars. So we expect an increase of that demand by about 40% by 2050. So the impact of technology is a huge. Technology and digitalization will be everywhere. The shift from a central to a decentralized system implies a very sophisticated management of the distributed resources. It implies as well that we need to keep the system very robust in terms of integrity, cybersecurity, real-time decisions, and overall optimization. And also it implies, when it comes to the electrification and the increased number of batteries in the landscape, whether we are speaking about stationary batteries or mobile batteries, like in the EV, electrical vehicle cars, it implies also to integrate them properly in the whole energy system. So to the 3Ds I'm speaking about, we need to add another D, which is the democratized. If you have a very sophisticated car, but it's not easy to drive, then you are losing a lot of the value of that car. If you have a very sophisticated smart system, but users cannot use it with simplicity and so on, it's not democratized, then you are losing the value of that smart system. So that's what the democratization means, is giving the users a platform, a workplace or a portal access, which could be like a one-stop shop, a universal access, user-friendly to whatever energy suppliers or energy services, or even bundle of energy services with other services, anywhere where they live. And they could have that as simple as Googling, for example. And then they could look at these services that are available and the energy suppliers and their products and services. They could also order what they need and click that like you would do it on Amazon. And for that, you need to do what happened in the telecom industry, where all the system operators, whether the ones in charge of the assets, telecom networks, or the ones in charge of the services, like telecom services providers, or the equipment providers, to work all together and to make it easy for the end user or the end consumer. I would call them even prosumers, because the consumers could also interact with the system where they could produce energy as well as consume energy, and also make it very easy for them to get renewable energy production simple for them, equip their houses, for example, or their flats with renewable energy. Everything that could transform a passive consumer, passive user to a more active user, like we see it in telecom, where the users of mobile phones are very active, and also transform them and their flats into smart flats and to become also prosumers. All of that is the democratization of the access to energy. Now, speaking about the other important sector in the energy transition is also the transportation, which counts in terms of transportation and logistics for about 30% of the energy consumed, 30% of the emissions. So this is the picture where this transportation sector will have to move to more e-mobility and green e-mobility, with the touch points between the digitalization side and I would say the mechanical side. Mechanical side will be looking at really the batteries as a technology in itself. We'll be looking at the vehicle efficiency. We'll be looking at how to charge, for example, the vehicle. The digitalization side will be looking at how to manage the whole traffic, how to manage where you need to charge your vehicle, for example, when you are doing hundreds of kilometers and you have a battery autonomy of a maximum 500 kilometers. The autonomous driving, the business of autonomous driving is a huge one. And this is a big game changer, particularly for Tesla as well, who is announcing that and will be delivering solutions for this. A company called Mobileye, which has been acquired by Intel, is a 15 billion acquisition. It's the largest acquisition that Intel has done. It's in the area of autonomous driving, for instance. So the objectives of clean mobility is to have the choice and the availability for the customers everywhere at an acceptable cost of ownership. That they could buy an electrical vehicle tomorrow, like they would buy a thermal car, almost the same price. Reduce the carbon emissions on the whole road transportation, and then have the EVs playing an active role in the electrical system, which has to be also prepared to avoid instability on the networks. Today, if you have maybe more than 20% of EVs compared to the total cars that are on the planet, you will create a lot of instability on the networks, and this is why you need to prepare them. The batteries have to play a competitive role and help the automotive sector to stay in the leadership, particularly in Europe, decrease the dependency on scarce raw materials, and think with discovery models and research and innovation on new raw materials that could be used and keep the cost of ownership for the batteries acceptable. And the whole preparation of how to get that as part of a manufacturing world where you can recycle batteries. There is a manufacturer, for example, in Sweden called Northvolt, and they do 100% recycled batteries for cars. And then making sure you have the batteries part of the whole energy system, and having all the functions and features like self-driving, for example, and connected cars with overall traffic management included. So we looked at the whole value chain, and we looked at how to optimize the whole value chain of discovery, research and development, production, maintenance, usage, and how the cars and their batteries could be used in the system, and the whole end of life cycle of the batteries. So we said, where the digitalization needs to be used, where do we have technologies that are ready, mature, where do we need still investments in the maturity of these technologies, and what are the use cases that are needed. For example, the idea is to define like a digital passport, for example, for batteries that have the whole history of the battery, from the way it was designed, to get out of the factory, how it was used, the carbon footprint behind it, the recyclability, for example, of the batteries, all of that part of the circular economy and the CO2 footprint, for example, efforts. So that picture is an interesting one we have drafted in the expert group on the digital batteries in Europe, which explains the whole need for preparing and working on getting in every part or phase of that value chain what are the technologies and the use cases that are needed, get them ready to the market, define some standards in this area, and make sure when it comes to the user cycle, we have a full integration between the battery technology, the battery usage as part of the energy system. Now, I would like to conclude with the takeaways or recommendations, how can we achieve an accelerated energy transition. So we should start by defining what are the needs, what are the market trends, what are the needs, what are also the pain points that we could see here and there on some markets. We should list the technologies and the use cases and see their stage of maturity, their feasibility versus the return they could provide. And also make sure that if we bring in new technologies or new services or use cases to the market, we keep them simple and we keep them affordable and accessible. And then measure the value generated through quick experiments, quick pilots. And then after we measure the value and the learnings from the quick experiments or quick pilots, go for a rollout or scale up. So the key to an accelerated energy transition is also to consider the regulation and the policy and remove the barriers, for example, for opening the market. Remove the barriers or make the systems robust in terms of security and privacy as well. Make sure that nobody fears anything. We need, for that complex energy transformation where we have a conversions between different energy sources, and as we have seen it in telecom, a good cooperation between the system operators and equipment providers, is to build also consortiums with important industry collaboration. Initiatives like the Green Deal or the Horizon Europe and so on are typically initiatives where you need consortiums of many partners from many countries to work together and to collaborate from different stakeholder categories. And then piloting, learning, looking at the maturity of technologies, looking at the feasibility of the use cases, measuring the value, and then from measuring the value, moving from pilots to a massive scale up. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much again, Mr. Meher Chebor. And we have got one interesting question for you right now. Can we measure the value generated from digital energy transition? May you answer?
And I recommend to measure it, as I said in the conclusion, so you can go very deep in calculating the as-is energy infrastructure you have in place. So you can go to power plant and say, as-is, this is the level of the key performance indicators in terms of the heat rate, in terms of output of energy, how much they produce, in terms of operations and maintenance cost, and then calculate if you improve these key performance indicators, how many benefits they can get, measure the millions generated on one-time or recurrent basis. It could be sometimes in one of the cases where I have been involved, like 8 million benefits per year. It could be 26 million benefits per year. We have another example in Pakistan where improving heat rate for one of the companies by 0.5% can lead to 10 million benefits per year. So over 20 years could be 200 million. And then you have an overall benefits with respect to the Sustainable Development Goals, with respect to the European goals, for example. And the whole benefits have been measured by the World Economic Forum globally to be around $2 billion benefits, $2 trillion benefits for the whole economy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Meher Chebor. Ladies and gentlemen, please give your warm line of applause to Mr. Meher Chebor, the founder and CEO of C Technologies, supported by General Electric. And congratulations, ladies and gentlemen, we have almost come to the end of the Innovation in Energy webinar brought to you by 482.solutions. Hope you have enjoyed this couple of hours of deep diving into the brilliant, innovative future of the energy sector of the world economy and have understood the trends in the area of collaboration between the traditional technologies have existed for hundreds of years and innovations, especially blockchain and so on and so forth. And please give us again your warm line welcoming and applauses to our distinguished speakers. Let's remind their names: Stanislav Borisov, Ecolabs; Emanuele Volpe, DTEC; Merim Ruslanova, Energy Web Foundation; Meher Chebor, C Technologies; and of course to Roman Kravchenko and Leonid Katskevich from 482.solutions team, the main organizers and hosts of today's online Innovative in Energy webinar. And thanks to the Cyber Academy team for a perfect technical support of today's broadcasting. You guys are awesome as always. My name is Eugene Romanenko, aka Crypto MC, and it has been a great pleasure to be with you today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching the Innovative in Energy webinar. Stay innovations, stay blockchain, and see you at the next events online and offline. Bye-bye.